Today we're diving into something incredibly useful for your Camino de Santiago journey, the Spanish language. Whether you're a first-time pilgrim or a Camino veteran, knowing Spanish or even just a couple phrases can really transform your experience. So in this video, I'm gonna share a few essential Spanish phrases that are really Camino specific that you wanna know, how I learned Spanish, and some really great tools for learning Spanish that will help you so much. By the way, hi, I'm Jen, and I walked the Camino Frances from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago de Compostela over 33 days from August to September. I'm also a longtime Spanish language learner. It's been over 4 or 5 years now. I first started learning Spanish in high school, actually, and then I did some classes in college. And then a couple years after I graduated college, I revisited it, and I've been really gung-ho about learning Spanish for about 5 years now. I am not a native Spanish speaker, so I definitely mispronounce words still, and I make plenty of mistakes, but I think that the effort really shows to locals and native speakers, so it makes a big difference. Okay, let's dive in. So first question, should I learn Spanish for the Camino? Well, in my opinion, I think especially if you're doing Camino Frances or the other routes that go through Spain, yes, it can really enhance your experience to know Spanish. I had the incredible opportunity to form friendships with native Spanish speakers, with Spanish locals, and that never would have happened if I hadn't learned some Spanish before leaving home. I walked with a group of Spanish speakers for about a week and a half to 2 weeks, and I was completely immersed in speaking Spanish all of the time, which is just an amazing way to just gain more practice with the language. And I just felt really grateful for making connections with pilgrims who gave me their kindness, who had patience with me, and who just opened up so many doorways to a really local experience and an insider view of the Spanish culture. In particular, like if you've watched my Camino videos, I've met Alfonso and Mario, and they helped me so much with speaking Spanish, and I was just so grateful. If you haven't seen those videos, go check out. I have a whole vlog series on it. I'll put the link in the description. But essentially, this experience was really special, and it never could have happened without knowing Spanish. Also, I'm a strong believer in always knowing a couple phrases of the local language wherever you're traveling. It's a really great way to show respect, and even if you stumble on some words, it just shows that you're there and you're looking to make the effort to speak the native language. So if you're considering learning Spanish for the Camino, I cannot recommend it enough. It's also extremely practical and useful in emergency situations, for example, or if you're at the pharmacy and you need to buy Band-Aids. Knowing how to say that in Spanish is just really helpful. Okay, so a lot of people on the Camino and here on my YouTube channel have asked me, Jen, how did you learn Spanish? Well, the answer to that is that I've been studying and tried basically anything and everything to learn Spanish. I've learned that the key to learning really any language is, first of all, keeping it fun and exciting. Second, fully immersing yourself as much as possible. And 3, being consistent, staying consistent with it. So I've taken online classes in Spanish. I have practiced with the 2 most popular language learning apps out there. I've read books in Spanish. I've listened to podcasts in Spanish. I've traveled to countries where Spanish is spoken to practice there. And I've also watched TV shows and movies in Spanish. I found that the best tool for watching TV shows and movies in Spanish is a subscription-based video platform called Lingopie. I love Lingopie because while I'm watching a show like Money Heist, which by the way is an amazing Spanish TV show that you must watch, check it out, I can have both English and Spanish subtitles, and I can also like turn off and on those subtitles. So I can turn on the English or I can turn them off depending on my level and what I'm feeling good with for that day. So That is such a nice feature. Lingopie is such an incredible tool for language learners because you can just click on a word that you don't know and you can see the translation right there. They'll even pronounce it for you, like you can click and hear the pronunciation, and that's just so helpful. The word is automatically added to your flashcards deck, so it's really great. You can review those vocab words later, and this just saves so much time, and it's just so much better than just having Spanish subtitles while watching a show on your TV. Like, being able to see both English and Spanish at the same time is just such a time saver. Another thing to keep in mind on the Camino is that you're gonna be in Spain, right? So it's really helpful to know the Spanish way of speaking Spanish in particular, like using vosotros instead of ustedes, or other words that are specific to Spain, like aseos. The nice thing about Lingopie is that you can choose a TV show or movie based on which country has produced that show. So for Money Heist, for example, it's all Spanish, so you can get really familiar with the accent, get used to hearing the Spanish accent before you head out on your Camino. Also, if you're doing the Camino Frances, it does start in France, in Saint-Jean, so if you want to brush up on your French beforehand, Lingopie is also available in French, which is great. If you're interested in checking out Lingopie, I've put the link to it in the description below, and also thank you to Lingopie for sponsoring this video. Okay, now let's go over some basic Spanish for the Camino. These are important phrases specific for the Camino de Santiago. You're probably going to be thrown into some crazy situations that you could never predict on the Camino. It's just the nature of it. So it's really helpful to know a little bit more than just buenos dias, for example. So everything on this list is Camino specific. Okay, first word, la ampolla. Do you know what this means? You guessed it, it means blister. Now, if you're like the majority of people, you're probably going to get a blister on the Camino, and it's helpful to know the word for it. So again, it's la ampolla, and that's spelled with a double L, which is pronounced with a sounding like a Y in English. So once again, la ampolla. Second word in Spanish for the Camino, el palo. In Spanish, palo means walking stick. And you're gonna wanna know this word in case you accidentally forget your palo at the albergue in the morning when you leave. Trust me, it happened to me once, and it's really easy to do, surprisingly. So don't forget your palos before you leave your albergue. Next word, sello. So in Spanish, sello means stamp. On the Camino, you're gonna have a pilgrim passport, and everywhere you stop along the Camino, whether it's a coffee shop, a restaurant, a store, or a church, or an albergue, you can collect stamps along the way. So you go to a coffee shop, get the coffee, then you pull out your pilgrim passport, and then you can ask for a sello and stamp your passport. I loved collecting sellos along the Camino. It's so much fun. Each stamp has its own kind of unique design. Some are really pretty, and some are even made out of wax. Like, it's so cool to see that. So it's really fun. So when you reach Santiago, you're going to go to the pilgrim's office and you're going to show them your pilgrim passport with all your sellos in there. And what you need to do actually within the last 100 kilometers is you need to make sure that you get 2 sellos per day in order to get your Compostela, which showcases that you have completed the Camino de Santiago. Another important word for the Camino is pies, which means feet. So this is kind of spelled like pie in English. So maybe a fun way to remember this is that on each foot you have 2 pies, but it's pronounced pies. You'll be talking about your feet constantly on the Camino, so it's really helpful to know the Spanish word for this. Next word, la flecha. La flecha means arrow, and on the Camino de Santiago, you're gonna see these little yellow arrows everywhere. They point you in the right direction of the Camino, so all you have to do is just follow the little flechas, and you'll be right on your way. You can also say flecha amarilla, which means yellow arrow. And if you happen to get lost, you can ask a local, ¿Dónde está la flecha? Which means, where is the arrow? And you'll be able to find the Camino, no problem. Let's cover food words too. So breakfast is el desayuno, lunch is el almuerzo, and dinner is la cena. Now let's try a phrase in Spanish. Quite possibly, I think the most important phrase you might need to know while you're on the Camino is "hay agua." This is quite possibly the most important phrase if you're desperately thirsty and you really need water immediately once you get to a small village along the Camino. So let's try that again. "Hay agua." And the H in Spanish is silent. So you want to remember that, just don't pronounce the H. Okay friend, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you're interested in seeing my real life experience walking the Camino, I have an entire video series about that linked in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Okay, thank you again for watching. If you like this video and if you want more about Spanish language learning, I'd love to share more about it. Let me know in the comments if you're interested. Okay, thank you. Buen camino.